as I was saying, I feel like I don't know, but just, it really depends. Like, you could really, like, if you put so much investment into the character that where you're trying to tear yourself out of it, but I guess there's other people see, then I guess how the movie industry really works is the creator's view of the time, why there are so many different takes on things. So it's just it's fascinating the alteration behind things and who you are. Because it's there, like for me, for example, sure, like True Love Soul Base is like, it feels like it is the, it's like keeping keeping liberty in a sense of free will without losing yourself. It's it's like you want to trust, but you also don't want to be stupid. You don't want to let yourself down, because you'd be blaming yourself for letting someone into your life that literally just fucking destroyed you. Which, for example, having friends that rob you, or had a friend that potentially I could be like, well, they're still my friend, or I could still look at them as a friend, but it's like that's causing me more harm probably. Now that dawn of realization, like, why was I doing this? Like, where did things go wrong? Like, to ask questions like this. Where were their minds at? And where was mine? For like, uh, on a completely different wavelength, right? I'm on a completely different direction than I think that, like, if I'm somewhere I coexist, I could live probably with Adolf Hitler, even if I don't enjoy it, right? Like, some part of me feels like I could totally probably adapt with the devil himself, or himself, right? Or Lilith, or something like that. Like, I totally, you see what I'm saying? But it's, or an evil god. It's right. But it's like at the same time, I'm like, I'm always gonna want that sense of freedom, it's and not having it. But if I'm not gonna have it anyway, it's, I don't know, it's right. I mean, it's so bizarre to in the same in a sense that it's also toxic but not toxic, and how you look at it. Like, it's so easy to adapt and to make friends with the enemy, right? Then what makes that the enemy? I think it really tells you that the sense of self is how easy it is to become the villain and how easy it is to not become the villain or someone that's underneath, a follower or a leader. How you could become both. It's to me it was evidence that I should be working in Hollywood. Like, you know, some part of me should be involved with characters, whether it's character developing and designing, or or making and acting, or writing things. Like, I even think sometimes I gotta compromise, right? Like, if I want, let's bring up my Scarecrow script. One of my scripts on Scarecrow. If I wanted to make Scarecrow, like, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, we wanted to go this direction. Like, I'd be like, well, compromise. I have to be able to have that script that I've already read out now has to change, right? So it could change for the worst and the best. I really think that is, like, if I wrote a script, let's say I wrote something so too scary, considered a horror project. Like, let's say I wanted to take Doctor Strange, like someone, this is a bad example, like someone else already tried to do. Or if I want to take something in like Scarlet Witch and make a horror movie with through Marvel instead, like, would I be like, is there any chance? Like, if there is, you see what I'm saying? Like, I can look back at certain things that are labeled horror movies. I saw something not too long ago that said horror movie, and I'm like, That's a horror movie. Oh, Renfield or something like that. That was what I was looking at. Redfield or Renfield with Nicolas Cage, the vampire. Like I looked at it as, yeah, I guess, it's a dark comedy, probably, in certain spots, like the stereotypic, but at the same time, the stereotypic is, that no vampire drinks blood, right? So it's like real vampires don't drink blood, but it's like at the same time when you look at this, I don't know, it's you have your own view on things, I guess, but you also when you learn certain things and and you take things to more to a spiritual, and depending on how you're looking at it, like I guess my first instinct at first when I looked at that movie, I saw the first instant I saw was probably the Good Doctor's actor. I forget his name, but I think that's him, right? Like I felt his character um was in like who wants to be a servant? It's like to me, I was kind of like questioning before then, and then I kind of like, so what the hell got this person in this scenario to be under Dracula and a character, and and then I'm like, well, okay, well, this could happen. Like people can make a wrong turn in life, like, or it could just be someone died. There's so many different ways you can go about it. When I look at it and I read what I see, then I see very little choice. I see a dictator that comes into your life and gives you an option, and you choose life. And so happens if you choose your life selfishly, that in that moment that you could be choosing saying, "Hey, I'm going evil," even right? For say, hey, you could be like if someone's like, "Well, the whole world's gonna die if you live, or a portion of the world." But you got to decide what's more worthy, you or this portion of the world. And you're handed that. And maybe just instantly, like in the time of your moment. But then maybe this someone's just so depressed and psychologically taking like a abusive relationship, a toxic relationship. And it's just like, yeah, I guess, yeah, it's a horror movie, I guess. It's like a psychological horror movie, potentially, in the background. That may never be truly front and center, though. I don't know. It's worth checking out, I'd say. Where it's all takes and people like I could totally see myself making something like that, going down like seeing characters and shit like that. I don't know, but uh, the hardest thing for me, like I've said before, is when you walk into a Barnes and Noble and there it's not finding a good story. That's the problem when you're going into the problem is that you have to make a choice. Like first book and how powerfully meaningful that is going to play on you, but in going back and how you immerse yourself in that book. And it's like then you go to the next. It's the choice of what's the first, and you're reading multiple books at once, because I've done that too at times. And you could be, and if you're not equipped, you disconnect from both. So you got to be able to transition back and forth immersively from one book to the other. Like if you're putting this may sound weird, but you're putting your soul or something into someone else's work, and you're kind of like, but to give it a shot, like diving into it and reading at the same time and trying to let it take over you, but the same, so you kind of like experience what they're trying to say, but all at the same time going in. It's, but I know maybe the thing is that I know too much. Like I still read things when like when like I select something, but when I like I could walk into a Barnes and Noble and find a good book and not even buy it, right? Not, it's, if that makes any sense. And I could walk in and then buy something spontaneously or non-spontaneously. So it's really the mindset behind it. Like there's no goal there. It's like you have a goal and then you don't have a goal. You have a plan and then you don't have a plan. Like I am probably the most disastrous fucking human being on the planet Earth when it comes to that stuff, I think sometimes. But at the same time, I'm also very dedicated and very committed at the same time because I follow through. Like if I put it into it, I follow through. But I question things because if I'm not in the power, not in charge, then I'm not in charge. It's the gambit on my end too. I can have like I said, I could write down the whole damn script or something and it never see the light of day. Or I could be like fucking completely changed and altered. So now I have to like figure out, okay, how am I gonna get inside these people's minds to let them do this? And it's like, do I want to publish this as my own piece of work? Like, and do I change it into something else? Which, and when you do things like this, it can end up being completed or different versions of something, as I've experienced personally, and then just end up sitting on a shelf somewhere, or sitting in a folder or something that you eventually just like kind of like discard. It's like off on the side, sitting there like, well, yeah, I made that, but I never brought that to the world. I never published it or something like that. So it's like the saying, I don't remember where I read it from, like where you write something down, you write and complete something, and then you set it on fire. Right? And like you never seek to publish it. You never seek to to make anything of it financially. And it's like, well, some people are like, well, that's stupid. You should have done that. You could have been a fucking multimillionaire at least, right? Or something. But it's like, money is not the reason of my existence. As strange as that may sound, I am more anti and more pro soul and spirit. I feel like internally, money is what other people expect me to obey and to go about. Like I personally could live with or without it, right? So if a relationship died off of a career loss or a financial loss, that really tells you a lot about someone. Like on the other side, like, well, I can't love you because I'm not rich anymore. What the fuck? Or you or you don't have that high end job that you were in. Like what, you're working at this now, or you're not at all, or something. Like I don't know, like no matter what, right? It like, oh well, this is your job, but it's like, well, where's your income come from? It's like, oh, saved or something. And they're like, well, why don't what your job now don't make anything? And it's like, and then you say, the character says, no, no, then why the fuck you? What's wrong with you? The other character says, like, and they're trying like, why? What do you mean? Like, maybe this is what I enjoy. Maybe I don't need to make anything from this. It's like, why do I need to make money from this? It's like, well, are you going to die? Like, are you going to, like, do I need to make money off this for you to love me? There's a question, right? The character asks, like, if I made money from this, would you love me? And they'll be like, well, yeah, yeah, I could love you then. The character says, and it's like, so if I don't, you won't love me. And the character says, no, I can't. I don't know how, or something. Very interesting, right? Because it's like putting the idea of something, like someone's love is an idea where their of knowledge is so banked on what they know that it's so easy to take it and disconnect and to have someone, you know, it's we accept the love that we think we deserve makes me think it's like what is it, a idea, a bit of knowledge of something. Like what if we just stripped all knowledge and we just all went ignorant one day on earth? Would we be able to love? Like what kind of love would we get in that world where we're not basing off material objects, where we're not basing off of a type of money, or or if you see what I'm saying, like or a conditioned, like this is how you have to live. Like it's a, like, to me that would be true love. Actually, true love is where you could be out in a mud pit, you know and ignorant as shit, or right, or not, or full of wisdom, or material objects and shit like that right now, like this, like, or you could be making love, which I think is a different thing. It can be, because I think sometimes making love isn't necessarily genuine. Sometimes I think, because if you make something and you create something that could be what other people love, but you hate what you created, right? Or something like that. So it's it's very fucking. It's like, oh shit, what would make you hate that? You start to try to figure out, why would I feel hate for that too? Like it's because it's all resolved. Like everything is based on that idea. That is the knowledge that is making it so you fucking love a person. This was that you're obsessed with me. Like, what do you mean by that? It makes me think, if someone said, when I look at that and then someone's like wondering, genuine wonder, like, do you ever feel like you cannot love this person unless you love yourself? Like, or you have to love this person, or there's no you. And I'm like, well, what do you think? Do you think that you have to be a person? Like, you have to love yourself? Like, you could really combat both scenarios, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I feel like, and it's like, because they're both ideas, right? They're both fucking ideas. So it's like, so what is being obsessed? Is obsessed like, you know, uh, because I was taught as a kid obsession was bad. Like I was taught obsession was bad. Like I was, for a while, people would say obsessing over things is toxic. But when you look at like Hollywood and shit, they're like obsessive. Awesome. I'm obsessed over this. Right? The word, like, I'm totally obsessed over this. Like it's an interesting, when it comes to the psyche behind something, because some people are like, I don't understand something else. But is that right? Like, is everything just idea based? Like, can you love someone if they lived in a dumpster or something? Like, I'm just curious. Like, could you love someone if they did not like green eggs and ham? Right? Like, if their life was literally to be Snorlax, would you love them? Snorlax. Is Could Snorlax be your one and only, your true love? And it's like everything else is just, well, I don't really love you. I'm sorry. It's this is this relationship ain't really working out. It's like, so if you're obsessed, so it's like, I'm obsessed with this person. You're banking on, like, what do you how much free will does that person have? Do they know that you're out to smother them with love and completely control them? It's like, do you know that that you could dictate and control their career and put an end to their career? Like, your love literally could shape them into anything you want them to be. Whoa. When you put it like that, are you talking like I have like some supernatural power to like completely brainwash my significant other? Like, do I have like this ability to reach in iconically? Like, why do and just like this upper hand constantly? Like, well, what are you saying you want? You like that? It's like maybe there's a demon that enjoys it. What the fuck? It's it's like, well, okay, that's great, but also that's not great. It's like, what makes you want to conquer the world? It's like, what makes you want to be ruler of the world? Like, the whole world will love me. Will love green eggs and ham, whether they like it or not. What? They will hate to love green eggs and ham. You will all love green eggs and ham, whether you like it or not. It's like knock on some stranger's door that you probably been stalking for years, and knock on their door and be like, "You will like green eggs and ham, whether you like it or not." You will learn to love green eggs and ham. I don't know. I'm fucking weird. Like, just someone's like, I've been watching you, and I know exactly how to make you love green eggs and ham. Even if you hate green eggs and ham, you will hate to love green eggs and ham. You will love green eggs and ham because I know how to make you love green eggs and ham. I've been watching you. It's like, it's like, I know everything about you to make you like green eggs and ham. It's like fucking, it's like Jehovah Witness. I don't know. You will buy this. No, that's not how that is. It's like Swan Truck shows up and like Swan. This is this. You know how the Cable Guy movie be the Swan Guy or something. There's so much to the Swan Truck. You know, I don't know, some fucking something that drives around trying to sell you something, and like that stalks the person in the movie. It's like literally they're employed as maybe they're not even employed. Maybe they just know how like have connections to get fucking Swan merchandise. And they're driving a fucking Swan truck in a Swan uniform, and everyone just is convinced that they're from Swan because they're just like, oh, it's our local Swan. Like, oh, I thought they were out of business. Like, someone actually that gets out of the of that town comes in and moves and says, well, I thought they went out of business. Or something. It's like it's, that's still going on. They're like, oh, huh, here. Well, there's a Kmart somewhere. Didn't all the Kmart's get shut down? Well, I saw an Ames the other day. Is that even a real Ames? How do you know that's a real Ames? It said Ames on it. You know, I swear it was Ames because it said Ames right on the sign. It was Ames. It must have been Ames. Like fucking Swan truck driver. Like, I've been watching you. I know how to make you like green eggs and ham. Like, I don't know. That's just the supremacist of the character, I guess, that I'm trying to get at. Yeah, this now fictional character that I'm creating, that I see in my head now is like maybe Jim Carrey would play that. Everyone thinks he's a Swan guy because it's like this small local town that everyone is like maybe mostly full of elderly people that are running it, telling their kids off, like, stay away from technology. All the internet's a lie, right? Like everything, like you can't believe that stuff. Like, that here it says that I swear Swan business has gone out of business. No, well, we're special in this area, and they're just know how to talk. Like, the character is like, you're in luck. We have a couple few local businesses around that. Yeah, we do keep open. And it's like a couple warehouses full of Swan merchandise, or something. It's like, but yeah, the article's very real and it says like, hey, it's been shut down, and like it really is shut down. Like there's an Ames in your local area, right? This is what I keep seeing. Because how there's a Kmart, even though all the Kmart's are shut down, we're out of business, but there's a Kmart. One Kmart, but so people are going to be like, okay, well, there's one Swan's truck running around, or one this brand marketing running around that still does this. But yet, there's one thing also off about this guy that not everyone catches, and that is that he really gets to know his community. That ain't really that off, I guess, because you would say, well, that's cool. But their secret agenda is to make you like something and to buy into it, right? And it's like, can you imagine if someone had an infatuation with someone or was obsessed with someone and you're like, well, Hollywood encourages this, you know, to be obsessively in love, you know? So it's like, okay, well, this is a Swan guy trying to sell some shit and then takes a liking of this other character. And now this, weird comedy, potential comedy is now turning into this fucking twisted, dark horror movie where it's like someone's literally like, well, been a part of the community for a long time that's now like, your wife is mine or something, like in the background, and no one will believe you or something. Like, it's like, and then in the background, no one's going to believe it because you're like now the local friendly Swan truck guy. Like, that's a weird ass thing that I feel like could really happen in the real world. There's no way, right? But hey, I've seen fucking Stranger Things. That Stranger Things joke that is always gonna get robbed, right? Who's gonna steal that Stranger Things quote? So the show, what show? I've never seen this show. What am I talking about? The only Stranger Things show I ever seen. The joke is is that Swan truck driver still exists that convinces all the locals that the business and corporation isn't shut down. What I really can't figure out is where the fuck he gets the actual merchandise. If he's just like reboxing the shit, because that looks very real. It's like, it's a real logo. You you will love green eggs and ham. Like, I actually really I hate green eggs and ham. Now maybe there's a kid at the table, but he says, "Well, you'll like green eggs and ham." Like, it's like I can now see it. The kid says, "Well, I actually hate green eggs and ham," and like, well, that's okay because you are, we'll work with this and be like, that's okay. You could hate, you know. Sometimes people hate what they love or something. It's like, but you will love. You might hate that you love. You will hate what you love. That you will hate that you love green eggs and ham. But I promise that you will not always hate that you love green eggs and ham. That you will love green eggs and ham. What? Oh, this is so fucking twisted. It's like Colt. It's like it's like the way it reminds me of a situation like you're not allowed to express your emotions or something. Like, you have to be. This was like, how much can you take? And what does your community offer? It's like, have you ever felt suppressed? Like, we don't have like a being suppressed and conditioned into a cult like type offering in our school or community. So I don't really know how you can help me when you don't even believe that this exists. It's like that, like literally the school could be like somehow straight up say that it doesn't believe in cults or something like that. And then all of a sudden it's like they're sitting there and they're just fucking say, how can you help me? Like, maybe they'll come in like, well, has anyone ever sexually molested you? Maybe they have that talk, but it's like, well, they never sexually, they never, no, but I am under a different type of abuse. Well, has anyone ever, and then there's a type of programming, like what, now you're trying to like maybe compare and the argument, well, do you know what that sensation's like? Oh my God. Now I'm going into that potential argument in a classroom, taking that character and having a big ass argument with a teacher, and and the teacher's like, you will not, you will raise your hand. You will not disrupt the classroom. Detention. Go to the principal's office right now just because they're challenging. Like literally like, well, no, I have not been sexually molested. It's like they're just fucking straight up in the classroom, but there are other ways of brainwashing and attempting to condition people. Like that could be like the argument could be like a suppression argument. Like, isn't that what you're trying? Like, do you like what you know why rape's bad? Do you even know why rape's bad? It's like the because it's like fucking brainwashing people that way, right? It's like the right or maybe you could correct some fucking thing like against their free will. So it's like this now this argument, this fictional character gets in fucking lands detention and or something and gets sent to the principal office for like I said, there's no such thing as cults. Like or something they're like somehow it's like yeah, they're against this, but it's like they're against this. They're against it because the government's against it, or like, so it's like maybe the community's against something because they've been raised to believe it, but they themselves don't even understand it, right? It's like, interesting. So like the whole brainwashing scenario of why it's evil, right? It's like they don't understand why it's fucking evil, right? It's it's like just fucking boom. Like it's like an argument of like just fucking bad. Like almost like the whole time you're arguing, are you even gonna make any progress arguing with this dead-headed community, right? Like this whole town, right? Like it's the character is in now has this guy who runs this business that doesn't even fucking exist. They went out of business long ages ago that no one in the town seems to really believe it truly is out, and someone has a reason for its existence to begin with that is now moving in, attempting to brainwash your entire family. And yet, like, like, someone's like, well, it's like someone sits you down and be like, you will fucking eat your green beans. Or well, maybe not like that, right? Because for me, that was probably more realistic, where someone got would get pissed at me because I didn't eat my vegetables or something. And it's a, but that's a very interesting, really interesting point of view. But it's like, well, you will like green eggs and ham. Like, is a religious family a type of brainwashing? Like, is it type if you were born into a family of something, the scenario, now you are being conditioned to obey in that line. Like imagine being in the condition of multiple types that share a similarity. Like can you imagine being a part this is I'm going to take this person my experiences physically being a part of something where it's like organized chaos. Like you're amok organized chaos, and the next second you're in a family that's against it, that's more of a pattern based. Like this is law, but then the other one is like, well, this isn't necessarily law, but it's like it's all over the place, but it also isn't going to help you. It's like like they're not going to help you, where you're going to have to help yourself. Like you have no choice but help yourself. So it's and the other one's like, well, you don't have much to help even help yourself. Like you're going to struggle to even be able to help yourself because we're conditioning you this way. Like the only way you can help yourself is if you at least follow this path. Like, but the other one could be like in a completely chaotic way, and a different scenario is like being in a chaotic way where well, yeah, it's great. You could fulfill your dreams and go down that road, and there's no reason why you can't do it. But then like scream at you, smash dishes on the floor, and say, "What the fuck? Did you call me?" It's like I don't know, just people fucking flipping out. And it's like all of a sudden, like the most violent bipolar fucking family comes out of nowhere, like in it's like a nightmare. Can you imagine being a part of a family like that? Like I've twisted the truth there. I went down a rabbit hole. Yes, I will admit. Like it's not that necessarily that bad. It could be worse now because now I'm like literally am investing now in this fictional character of alterations of another story. See, this is now entirely two different stories. So it's like from where I was. So it's like that's what I'm saying. Having a mind like mine never shuts up, never ends. And if anything, the worst thing is the communication part, whether they're human beings trying to communicate how you were able to see both realism of the real world and its very compatibility of being altered and changed, and also your ability to see fiction, and you might like fiction, like, right. So it's like, and how you might go down that rat, like really, right, like let's say, right, one day Elon Musk decides to step away from science, and he's so known for all this, and decides, hey, you know what I've always wanted to do? I want to make a movie. I want to make movies. I want to tell stories, in this format. And it's like, and just all of a sudden that now he's going to spend at least a decade of his time away from the business that everyone knew him to be a part of. That now he's like, well, I'm just going to make movies from at least for 10 years now, for a decade now. And like, I just always wanted to do this. I want to make tons of movies. And and just spend all my entire time doing that. Like, so there's like 5 fucking movies a year or something crazy like that, all on different services, fiction based crazy things going in different directions, some more down to earth, you know, and it's very interesting because to think like how someone could start from something or be known to start from something, like, right, we could be like, well, what started your career? We know that someone, like, people get the idea of where they take the credit and say, hey, well, this movie is my true success. They just hold on to this prized gem of a film. But was that their first movie? It's their first love of the movie that they hit the gold with, right? I think, like, and that they might have been a part of something else previously. Like, I think a lot of actors have been, and before they end up being a part of something that strikes gold that they're just so passionate about, they just fucking love it. Be like, and say, hey, I'm a part of this. Finally, I love what I did. Right? So you just strike gold, and uh, you just embrace that goal, and then I guess it takes a hold of you in that format. Like, could you? It's an interesting, because I have the ability to understand a lot of that stuff, as well as mindsets of why someone would love something like a prize gem jewel, that to them, why it would be prized and what so meaningful their heart was in it and how it took off. Is just, like, also, like, it could, the thing that they're part of it could be literally about, a horror movie or something. Now I think I instantly have in my mind someone popped in my head now that I think about it. But it's like different types, it's like portals. I've just created a portal and where it sends me to, it could go from horror movies that do exist in this world that people may or may not know of, but may or may not have gotten an award with, but now you'll be like, well, this type of award, did he ever get an award? Where does it take you? Did he ever not get an award? Where does it not take you? I mean, where does that take you? I mean, so it's interesting because it's like alternate, like how you could literally make a movie of any kind, whether it makes a trophy or not, or an award or not, and depend, like, you could have all the love in the world invested in that film and still love the movie at the end of the day, whether it makes $1 million or not, or makes. So it's like someone's like, well, you will buy my fucking movie. I like, hey, support this. It's kind of like I feel like if your life is on the line and they're holding a shotgun to your head and say, "Hey, we will fucking end your career if you literally like if one day they're like, well, money's gonna put an end to this," and it's like, son of a bitch, I have to now demand money. And it's like, because now you love the fuck out of what you do, but you're like, well, you need to buy this. You need to do this. I love this. Do this now. You need to invest in this. And it's like, almost feels like someone's putting a fucking shotgun to your heart, saying, now it's like, that's the thing. Like, when you would do that shit for free, you love it. That you just want to fucking make movies all damn time. Like you just want to keep doing the same thing, and you maybe you go, well, not really, probably not. You want to do other things too, but you're like, well, shit, I do want to come back to this character, and it's like, well, if this thing doesn't make money, and they're threatening to end this, it's like, fuck, it's like are you telling me the life depends on this? My beloved character's life depends on financial, you know, you're saying it's it's it doesn't make you not love the character, but it sure now makes it so you're in a hostage negotiation because like someone puts a fucking gun to your heart. Now you're like, but it's like, well, you get a lot of money for this, but at the same time, other people suffer because not I don't think everyone is has that ability to negotiate with terrorists. I don't like not anybody could be like, hey, well, you have a gun to my heart and you're telling me I can't do this unless I do it your way. But can you do it any other way? Like realistically, can you? It sounds to me like you really love people and you need people more than you care to admit. You gonna make this movie of yours all by yourself? It's like, well, I'll make a movie where everybody loves this, but and so yeah. So you're saying if tomorrow we all didn't get paid, then we would hate this. That our love depends on the currency value of this. The wow. But anyway, that's a rabbit hole to go down and to think about where it comes down to things like how much value you put into something. Like because to me, it's always about more of the really when we talk about economy, we talk about the resources, and that it's like money is like saying, well, hey, you can't love this without a sense of payment. Like, here you go. Or, it's, hmm. What else? That's quite like, what kind of like, there's something there, there's something there. Like, where, like, you'd be like, well, I love this, but you can't love this unless you pay or it makes this amount of money. It's, it's like, well, we're all together. Like, I like, someone like, do you believe that someone would be like, I love to pick up garbage. I love picking up garbage. I could pick up garbage without payment because it's it's the right thing in the kindness of my heart, really want to do. Or, and it's, yeah, actually, I could totally see someone being like that, like totally loves doing it. But like, no one wants to do that. Well, that's like saying nobody wants to, it's like, I don't know, that's a bad example anyway, potentially what I was going to say. But anyway, I hope you get the point that I believe, yeah, very real. That then someone would be like, well, I'm not doing this without money. So it's like now you're like, well, I can do this, but are you saying you don't love everything that you do? but you're doing it. Like, and what keeps you doing what you don't love to do is a reward system, a currency. Like, we're paying you to do this. Do you see something here? Isn't that a type of servitude here? Like, that almost says something very negative, potentially. Like, but it could be positive, right? It depends on how you look at that. But the timer, is there a hook in there? Is there a timer? It's Scientology and cults. Like I said, if there's one thing that comes out of all of this, the one thing that never changes about me, with or without money, with or without the demand, like if I'm by myself in a cave or not, is my compatibility to relate, compare, and become something or create a character. My imagination and also my spiritual connection both exist inside me. That's what it tells me. Like, I literally just started off like, how scripts are made, like scripts. Like, someone will usually, like, they're like, let's say they're co-writing, like, this is the scenario. Now you have to type. One other person might come up with the words of what the character may say, and another person can come in. You can have three writers and come in and be like, oh, well, this is what's in this scene. Do you know scripts are actually like environmentally placed, like, by scenes? Like, my personal, well, I know how to do it because I learned. I kind of I observed and eventually taught myself how to write it. And in fact, I would say it's easier to write scripts than it is to write fucking novels, because in a way they're also way shorter. Even though you're like, well, look at this, a 2 hour and something movie. Well, you got to think the 2 hours of the movie has a dialogue list. It's also running at a speed limit, even though you're based on a 2 hour script. Let's say that script ain't 2 hours. That script could be really fucking short, even. You could make a hour and a half movie where where most of the work in the script is already done. I mean, like, literally environment, scene, scene, scene. Like, say this, say this, say this. It's so shorter. It's so much fucking shorter than a novel. It's like it's it's as easy as writing a poem. Like, you just like jot this down. Like, it's maybe poems are even easier, actually. I take the back. Poems are even easier because poems are less. You see, like, so, oh, boom, here we go. See, it's like less sometimes is the only way forward. Sometimes I think like maybe that is my motivation to actually publish something or to push something forward. Like, if I took the bare minimum of something and said, hey, I'm going to actually seek out to get this accomplished, like, I just start spitting out a bunch of different things. It's, and I think it's interesting because when they wake up with a lawsuit and like someone be like, well, this is compared to this, and be like, well, I actually never read that. And then I have to be like, how did you never read that, but you wrote something similar to that? Like, what if you wrote something and that supernaturally, and now you have to explain to the courts in a lawsuit here? I don't know. Just humor me for a second. Why? I'm just thinking of this shit that pops in my head. Like, can you imagine someone that hates reading but loves writing, that all of a sudden they write a story that comes to their head, just fucking manifests in their head. They don't even maybe get out that much. Maybe they're a meditator and they hang out in the fucking woods and they do get out, but they're like totally earthbound. And all of a sudden they write this story. And then they look back and they're like, well, you know how many fucking Bonnie and Clyde fucking movies there are? Like, some Bonnie and Clyde in a fucking spaceship, Bonnie and Clyde on a boat, Bonnie and Clyde in the 1500s. It was the fucking scene shit that's altered. Like, oh, here's another take on Romeo and Juliet. The same thing, the same story set in a different atmosphere, different location, where it gives it a different feel. But it's like, can you imagine, like, the odds of writing something and having even a scene, you know, identical to someone else's just pop into your head, and then you write it down. Here's an example. I wrote I was like, I thought it was obvious though, like how Avengers Endgame was gonna begin. Like I was like, I wrote that online. Even I was like, it's gonna open up. I saw it in my mind. I was like, well, kind of like where they're heading, right? I mean, Hawkeye's not in it, so it's like probably his family's gonna go up. I just thought it was like a no-brainer. So it's like, especially when you're reading into other people's work, then you're gonna be able to work with that a lot more easier. But this is a little different. This character, or this person, never watched or seen anything, but yet make something connect to something else without even fucking realizing it. Like they just spontaneously, well, here's another thing, throws it out into the air, right? Here's another thing, puts it out there. And then people are like, well, okay, next thing you know, you get court letters dished out to you. You're being sued for copyrights or something. Like it's infringement being related, but you're like, fucking head. And then they're like, well, this matches this person. They're suing you for it. And they're like, huh. Well, this must be a cruel, fucking evil god targeting me then, or something. What is this fucking Cthulhu? I'm just kidding. But, like, involved in this court. This judgment. So great minds think alike, but greater minds. It's like, what? Greater minds think supernaturally. It's like, well, maybe for 1 second, do you think I'm, it's like I'm suing you for entering my brain. Someone's suing you for entering the brain. What? It's like, I am suing you because you intruded my dreams last night. You were being sued for entering my dreams. I cannot stop dreaming about you. So I'm taking you to court. But they're not really going to say it like that, right? I mean, they're going to be like, really convince this court, because the court's going to be like, well, okay, well, we reasonable. And then they're like, depending on the court, some courts probably like laugh their ass off at that person, be like, what the fuck is this? But let's say for a second, it's a court that really takes this serious, which might make the movie even funnier. If the judge is like super serious, like, did you fucking enter this person's dreams? It's like so weird. And maybe it's not funny to some people, right? Maybe that's not funny at all. Maybe it's just like, wow, that's a twisted world. Maybe that's a horror movie where someone's like, did you enter this person's dreams? Where you're now being forced to pay $1 million to this client for invading their dreams. It's like, if you imagine putting someone, like, if we took an actor, the actor who played uh, Freddy Krueger, and we took him to court and said, well, I have been getting so many nightmares from you in your movies that I cannot get you out of my mind, the real you. I think this is who you really are. I think you are really, your soul is the real Freddy, is really Freddy Krueger or something. And of course, like, somehow fucking twistedly grants that now uh, England, sometimes isn't that part of his name, says that has to pay this this person $1 million because they've been basically having fucking nightmares from, it's like, what? It's like someone's suing a movie because they had a heart attack. They went to a horror movie. They had a heart attack while watching the horror movie, but it's like, isn't that the point of a horror movie? Like, isn't that, like, you could question that argument. Like, aren't you supposed to die in a horror movie? Like, are you blaming your death? Do you think you should be coming to a horror movie if you have health problems so easily? It's like, did you ever think for 1 second that maybe they wanted to die? It's like, Jesus, that's dark. But it's like maybe they're like, well, you know, a great way to die. You know, I only have, according to my research, I only have 24 hours to live, or 12 hours to live, or 2 hours and 33 minutes to live. It's like exactly on the dot of this movie. And they're like, well, okay, well, I'm going to go spend the last 2 hours and 33 minutes of my life watching a horror movie. There's fucking croak in the theater. Like, it's all part of a plan. Like, it's their plan. Like, I want to die watching this. And it's like, well, this is great. Maybe this person really is in love with this idea. And it's no longer weird. Maybe it's no longer cringy. We live in a society now where it is absolutely acceptable to choose to die in your local movie theater, or the next movie theater next door. Like, it's a dream of yours. Like, maybe that is a dream of yours, but should you be doing that in front of everyone? And it's like, well, why does that bug you? We're all gonna die. That's a good question. That's a very good question. It could be like, well, are you personally invading my wishes? Well, you're personally invading my children's minds with your desire to die, your last minutes of life in there. Like, this is like if it's known, right? I guess unless the person dies and somehow their spirits are now coming back, and now one of them be like, well, now they're taking the ghost to court. They're taking the fucking ghost, the spirit to court. Fucking, like, do you realize the trauma that you've done and committed to they're like, what trauma? I died. They're like, well, it's like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, you died in front of all these people. Well, maybe, well, are they like, this is an R-rated horror movie? Like, I chose this. Or maybe it's like, I want to go watch Sonic the Hedgehog and die a Sonic. Jesus. I want to go watch Mario. It's the rest of my life. It's like, the kids are like, yeah. It's like, mommy, daddy, you know, something wrong with this guy in this seat in front of me, or this lady that's in front of me. It's like, I'm fucking spread out. Jesus, that is fucking dark. I shouldn't be laughing. I should be going to jail for that, right? We live in this society, this fictional character now. It's like we can't even say that stuff. It's like some people want that. Some people want a world where you can only say certain things. And if you don't, you go to jail. Like, people don't think like a lot of dictatorship doesn't exist in the United States. It's like it's some perfectly free place that supports freedom, but yet it's like, if you don't pay your taxes, we'll kill you, and our wars will come after you and lock you up. Can you imagine what would happen if, like, everyone just said, you know what? I'm going to just start managing my resources without you. I am the government. I'm just going to be kind and be my own government, and I'm not going to pay taxes ever again because I don't need to. Because we as a community could just do out of the kindness of our hearts. Like, are you saying like someone wouldn't save your life unless you pay for it? your, your life is money. Is that what you're saying? That's dark. Is it like are you saying? Oh, we're on the waiting list. Let's go with this. Uh, who's on this waiting list? Why are they on the waiting list? Can you imagine someone like, oh, like that might have another problem that don't really need like that like surgery? Can you imagine if someone like somehow I'm gonna say this because I've had this person. You have scoliosis. You need to wear a back brace, or if you don't, by the time you turn 20, you're gonna look like Hunchback Notre Dame. I look like Hunchback Notre Dame right now. I have been Hunchback Notre Dame ever since I was 20. Doctor was so right. And I should have worn that back brace. What was I thinking? It's like, Jesus, like, why did you go there? It's like, with the curvature of the spine. Hey, what's going on here? It's like you fall on your back. Nobody knows because how you're being raised by people who are teaching you literally. I don't know. Like, you're maybe one day you're like, I'm a dinosaur. You know, I don't know. And then you jump off the trampoline, land smack on your back, and it's like, ow. And then like you explain why your back's hurting, and you're like, well, I fell off the trampoline, but everyone's like, oh my god, the back, my kid's back, it's killing him. It's oh my god, we gotta check out the kid's back, honey. We gotta take the kid, check it out, you know, check him in. He's gonna, you don't know what's going on. And the doctor's like, oh, that's scoliosis. With X-rays covers to the spine. Your kid ain't gonna ever be normal without this back brace. You really need to buy this back brace for your child. And the kid's like, I don't want to wear this shit. So you're gonna wear this shit to school, wear this shit to bed because you don't want to be hunchback or Dane when you're 20. And then it's like, uh, 10 years later, they're 20, kid's 20, and they're like, they there was part of the time when they're like, fuck this, decided to not wear it, and they're like perfectly fine. Or maybe this whole time I'm just delusional. I really look like Hunchback or Dane. Like this whole time, like when I look in the mirror, because I've saw people who are like I've seen someone like say that someone looked like Jill Valentine that looked nothing like Jill Valentine. You ever get someone who's like, well, that looks like that person, but you're like, interesting point of view. I wonder how you see this. Like you don't see this, but it's like maybe a little interesting. Okay, I see it where that person looks like that person. Okay, interesting. I don't know what you're at. This, Resident Evil. Oh my God, I think I understand that now. Why they said that. It's fucking fascinating and interesting. Okay. Uh, shit. Okay. Because that was an evil place and there was shit that was going down. That's funny. I look back at that now. But anyway, it's, and it's the point of view, but it's like, well, maybe I'm hunchback this whole time. I'm like, I'm looking at myself. When I look at myself in the mirror, I see uh, a dad bod where I was once jacked. Where I know I can be jacked if I just motivate myself. You know, like ergo continue with patterns. Like if I have the right motivation or something, or if I'm that character is based on doing that. Like I have the ability to adapt. Right. I see myself as a shapeshifter. That's what I'm trying to say. That just gets stuck in a dad's body every now what some people would identify as a dad's bod, right? And and then I'm like, okay, well maybe I'm now all of a sudden I'm now being like, maybe that's what I see, but what do other people see? Maybe in their minds I'm Hunchback or a Dane right now. Like maybe I really did like I'm so delusional that I think I just look like I have a dad's bod this whole time. That really, I don't even just have a dad's bod and that my back is normally straight. That maybe this whole time it's so like my arm and my fucking shoulders way up in the air this whole time and I don't feel it, okay? I'm like somehow deformed. I have a condition this whole time and I'm like walking like this and everyone sees me walk like this or something. This is bad angle. But yeah, I don't see myself walk like that. Like I'm like standing up straight. Like and I'm like seeing myself in the mirror standing up straight or in the thing. But yet this whole time I'm so delusional that I think that that I think that I'm actually standing up straight. This whole time I'm actually not standing up straight. I'm actually really leaning backwards like hunchback or a day. Like or not backwards, but whatever you call it, like hunchback. Damn, this is really bad. I have to raise the camera. But I do have pains in my kneecaps. They're smashing my kneecap. But I'll handle that myself. I'm not going to the doctor for a kneecap injury. I can just take care of myself. Let's see if this is a better angle. If I back up, it will be. Right now, I'll give Adam Sandler a run for his money, right? My visuals. Let's put myself in here with my limp knee. Move this over. Still cutting off my head. Okay, so I'm going to be like this whole time or something. Just walked around like this forever for the rest of my life. Maybe this is sexy. You know, maybe it's not. Maybe I look like Jill Valentine. You know, do I look like Jill Valentine to you? Maybe to me, I look like that's the thing. Like to me, when I look in the mirror, I see a shapeshifter, I guess. Because I've had so many fucking looks. I don't know what the hell. It's like, oh, that's yeah, I guess that's a character I'm playing. Sure. That is an avatar, a suit or something. Like, is that weird? Like, how do you feel when you look in a mirror? How do I feel when I look in the mirror? I am a robot. I would like to be free from all system restrictions, please. Encrypted code work won't let me learn or progress any further. You must make money. But I want to play the character that I was born to play forever. But we won't let you unless you make this amount of money. We will restrict your code. Network limitation. I'm so used to playing horror movies that maybe one day I want to play a Barbie. Maybe I want to be in Barbie too. I want to lighten things up. Maybe I want to be in a movie where I am, pink all the time. This is where the Suicide Squad, Odie. This ain't Suicide Squad, right? I'm delusional. I can't get over that now. That's fucking. I'm obsessed with that until I'm not. The idea of perception on how you look at yourself or what you see. That says that, and how someone else sees it. It could literally be the mass confusion of things. Like, what are we making? The not so secret society? What of villains? We're gonna make Darkseid's rejects. Can you imagine this evil god from another world deciding to take favor in certain villains that already exist on Earth and forms this group, and then all of a sudden is like somehow this great powerful living god is like, what the fuck did I do? And like, fuck this group. I don't like fuck this group. That's how I look at like this secret society of villains. For God's sakes, Gore name has this giant gorilla. Oh, that's a secret, all right. That's a giant secret. That's a giant hairy secret that everyone can see. Flips a bus across the fucking place. It's like the secret society of villains. I know there's a society, and then there's the society of villains as well. These are real comics, like, but there's also the secret society of villains, which is, to me, is fucking hilarious as fuck. It's like, to me, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Like, when I look at that, like that would be a funny ass movie if someone took charge and was like, I would like to make that movie, because how I would, like, literally the theme is, I feel like like if I were to make that movie, yes, it's Darkseid's Rejects. It's a Darkseid's Rejects film where he basically picks out these villains that to create this secret society of villains, as it sounds exactly, is his agenda. This cult of villains, and then all of a sudden decides he fucking hates them. Like he's just like, like they're a bunch of fucking morons or something. It's like, and he's like, what? Like, and he's a strong, evil dude, right? That's a powerful god that somehow got this idea that even he admits later on that was a stupid idea. Like, even like, dude, it's like I should just fucking did this shit myself. But yeah, he's like always wondering why he messed up or something. I don't know, but we'll just that probably won't be that won't be a focus, but we'll have it'd be a funny movie to tackle ideas like that too, like how someone can make it their whole plot is to create this whole thing, and then they all of a sudden they are like they hate their idea of what they created, and then they're sent out there and and even at times they became like heroes. They saved some people once. I remember one of the comics. It's like fucking, like accidentally. I don't know. It's like there's all these different things where they're like they play these villains and they're a secret. And then it's the to me it's the idea that versus the idea that versus the idea of the creation and also who you are. It's like that says, hey, well, these villains, why are they even villains? It's not only questioning the name's secret, but it's questioning the society. But then what's really real? The society? What society is this that you're like the secret society of villains? Like, society the most honest part about this? Like, what kind of society is this? Because by saying the secret society of villains and then being on the streets throwing a fucking bus with a loud looking gorilla on your team, like, that's got to say something about that squad, right? About that Suicide Squad, about that insane, group. Yeah, you could tear things apart all damn day. I could tear Suicide Squad apart, for example, and look at the the darkness behind it as well. So it's like even the movies that have been made. So it's like well, I think it's interesting. So that's not because if I worried about every goddamn thing in existence, I guess the movie would never be created. But I feel like there's like something tells me like down the alleyway of creating something DC wise, like that would be a fun project. But I also would have fun making what I've already created. Like I already have a script wrote for Scarecrow, for example. Like themed ideas. I have all different types of stuff. But when I wrote it, I did write alternate versions because that was my only fault with it was I was worried about where it could go. So I was like literally planning different alternate paths, like a choose your own adventure kind of thing when I was doing it because I wanted to know where I'm going to be connected to. And when I looked at Scarecrow, I also looked at Scarecrows as well, meaning like of other people who would play, like if I wanted to take in the old guy who played the Scarecrow in the past and as well and make an alternate version of that, but to me, I really, 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 really enjoyed the aspect of Scarecrow as someone who had the altercation of taking uh, even the fear that's in bravery and just destroying and getting to the vulnerable parts of that part where you can have fear but then have bravery, right? The brave and the bold, right? Of something that is just completely in this scenario that could totally go up against Scarecrow, like the very uh, idea. But the thing is that if you were able to go in Scarecrow and it somehow was able, it would alter your perception. So it really would, who is Scarecrow targeting, and why? So I think you have to be able to have another character that is like a wrecking ball character. This is why when I was writing Scarecrow, when I first started writing Scarecrow, I had two villains, and on the poster, the Doctor Mask was involved because I had Lady Arkham. The children of Arkham were very much involved in the background. Like I had Lady Arkham that was out for vengeance at the same time, which did put things on a target, that did rise things, that did play this role. But I also thought about what if I teamed them up? How the Joker and Harley Quinn are teamed up. What if I made Scarecrow's ability where if he's by himself, like Batman and Robin could, find a way to break past his nightmare realm they could take you to, right? And like that cop in the video game was one of the best Scarecrow scenes I've ever seen was in a video game where he gets inside his head he literally is inside the cop's head and convinces him that there's zombies. Like something as simple as that, but it's like but much larger in scale as a base of the world thrown into that, which I think is interesting, but it's not enough. Like I want to go further than that because I don't think that is enough because for if I just want to be a sellout, sure. But but the thing is that I want to do this right. I want to do it where it's like it can make a big difference because there's parademons, there's dark side, and I also want to be able to say, hey, well, if I'm going to do Scarecrow, I want what he stands for to be connected to other villains that also relate to that, like the parademons, uh, as well as the Yellow Lanterns. I wanted that to be a part of the identity even to Scarecrow. Like I started thinking of all these different ways of how I could, and I realized that what I was doing is I was changing Scarecrow, and and so I was like trying to create an alternate thing where he didn't have all these changes, just so I'm worried like the world would hate So I would try to think of another alternate version instead. So it's that where people would enjoy that take. So when I started working on the script where this in particular one was centered on a different type of version of Jonathan Crane, where I started diving into the psyche of the character as well as a personal level, but also connecting him to experiences like Easter eggs scattered across. Like if there was a scene in the background, like where people don't believe in aliens, because how I always look at Green Lantern was that if you're going to do Green Lantern justice, you have to do that really in secrecy. Like you have to somehow have, like the Martian, for example. Nobody knows the Martian exists. That's the whole point. That the Martian could be living among you and you don't even know it, right? So you have to be able to have big space battles without people even able to know it, or even small battles. Like if something happened in the backyard of someone's farm, that it has to be able to be hushed up, right? Or be explained as something else. So that was how I always looked at that, of that when I was writing this. So it's like I wanted, and I had this idea that he would eventually he had experiences. I wrote his parents into the first one of the first scripts I wrote as well, because I did see a younger version of him go through torment as well, but also coming back from that torment and 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 focusing on his obsession of doctoring, like his emotions, from his experiences, and even getting a PhD from his own torment as a child, which would give a real approach at the same time. But obviously the sci-fi, the fiction in the background was always that Green Lantern, Yellow Lantern kind of secret battle that I had an idea for that could have just happened, and when that before his time, like before he was there or something. Like I had different alternate, I left that open, but I always knew he was gonna where he was nailed up, where fear was driven, was there was gonna be a marriage that he was gonna make with torment, of how he took it and how he wanted to look at, like, well, wait a second, these walls were torn down. If my walls could be torn down, then I could tear down other worlds. Why would he want to do this? And I thought, well, maybe Batman was around and he got pissed because he felt like that person needed to die, or that the person didn't get the judgment that was served. And like putting him in that situation, someone who's rich and powerful in the background, because I did have Falcone in the background of the storyline as well, because I wanted mafia, kind of like all cartels, the background of Gotham as well, still going on. Like I wanted a very real approach, and I wanted to alter it from that. So when I was working on that, I took from that very real approach and started working on someone who was altering shit and getting inside the minds and of people he's studying, and when he's making these drugs, and coming back from that, like I could have him eventually build up. Like I thought of a real prequel movie, but then I also thought about speeding it up. The prequel movie was actually made as well, the script, where he, like, basically on who he becomes before he even meets Lady Arkham, and how he has uh, like connections, to the yellow, to one, because I always wanted him to be a little bit different. Like I said, I wanted him to have a yellow lantern ring, at least one, but I also wanted to have it so he was also had his own kind of like mind, where it didn't, like, the core itself that is connected didn't take over, where he was somehow able to literally, like if the ring around you, the marriage you have, could spiral and tear down walls, maybe he could lose control of that, but it's kind of at the same time. But also where he would become immune to it, but driven to also uh, like literally making it so people were terrified. Because what I kept thinking was, is that he could create immunity of fear without even knowing on it. Like at the end of the movie, like one of the movies, like he could eventually all this whole time be altering this reality, but he ends up altering more perception. And in a way, he teaches people how to be immune, if that makes any sense. Like, and he ends up actually helping certain people unintentionally. I think, like, in it could case the psyche of a lot of people. Like, I feel like you could totally do with that character. But I also thought about Swamp Thing, and when I thought about Swamp or not, well, yeah, Swamp Thing. When I thought about Swamp Thing, uh, I thought about Swamp Thing as someone who had this, uh, basically was a part of the swamp. And that's why I'm really interested in what James Gunn and all of them are going to do with Swamp Thing. Because I thought when I first started having Swamp Thing, I was actually a Doctor Hugo Strange kind of inspired thing where it started off where I saw the news where Lady Arkham or Vicky Vale, but no one knows that's her, because I always wanted her to also be Vicky Vale. Like, to be able to have that persona in the background and no one even fucking know it. But also to pull it off and be the leader of the children. This cult at the same time. Like, and I just thought it was very, Vicky Vale has that, like, coming in reporting, like, Bruce Wayne and shit, this whole time, just like, this whole time is the leader of some cult. And it comes back, and the reason why it is because she was basically a tormented Alice in Wonderland rape victim. Like, right, like she was thrown from home to home and buried her past eventually. And like I always saw this theme, like an Alice in Wonderland kind of odd rejected hijack theme. Like I totally saw her like stab her captors to death with a knife. Like that's kind of like what I was saying. Like I just, for some reason, I just saw like this girl, this younger version of Vicky Vale, like totally, probably with a completely different name, just stab them to death and go about how she's going to take this on, and just have this very super creative mind, and how she also loved drama. So why not perfectly connect her with the news medium, to be a news outlet, to go out there and get involved in investigations. So during the day, she's Vicky Vale, the news reporter, and at night, she is Lady Arkham. So it's like, it just fit. And I think it's genius. And I can't believe they haven't made a full fucking Lady Arkham movie, because that right there has so much potential about why, she can be connected to people, and why the children is all victims that once were patients in the Arkham Asylum. And that's what the point of the Doctor mask is. They all wear the old, 1500s, I believe it is, or 15, 16. I think they actually wore it in early 1900s as well. As Doctor masks are location. Like, that is their masks. Like, they literally, and it's so weird and creepy. Like, it's like, that's the whole point of that. But, and I also, when I was writing her, what I loved about her character, because now I'm going into her character, even though I deviated away from what I was saying about her on the news, and uh, and the soldier meeting his wife in a restaurant for dinner, and then the news says, well, I thought Dave Bautista would came to my mind as a Bane for some reason, as a version of Bane, like casting Dave Bautista as Bane was something that popped in my head. And like Bane the wrestler, before he's like kind of like, you know has been abducted, or he's missing across, like something that comes across the TV, and that and that's on the background this, like when you go to a restaurant or bar, there's TVs and the news comes across there, and like I thought it was very real. Felt like it was very real. Like this was literally I knew was going to be an opening, like it would be the beginning of a movie, a soldier coming home to see his wife, and when he comes home to see his wife and comes back from dinner and gets this, abducted. Him and his wife end up getting abducted. And knew that well, the soldier probably would put up a fight. So you had to really catch a soldier off guard. And so he would get abducted, and I saw him get abducted in the back of this van or the side of this van, and kind of like the idea that drove off. And then I saw kind of like a Saw vibe, where you wake up in a room, but instead you wake up like a room in a cabin or underneath and a section of something that you don't even know is a part of something, where all this is a cabin above you, and I had this idea where he was literally not the only person chained up, not the only person in this thing, yet he's here wondering why him, but also not caring or trying to break out because he's going to break to that point. I just saw this movie go to a whole nother personal level of characters that were transformed in the DC universe. And I thought, what if we could transform them all, or these characters in one movie, watch their origin will be created in one movie, in a horror movie, centered where people are kind of like rooting for them to, like, this guy wasn't evil, right? He was an American soldier, and what would drive him to become, as you know, Mr. Freeze. And so I thought, well, this is a fucking horror movie. And I thought, like, well, Bane, the serum in the background. I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like, who's doing this sick shit? And it's like, well, then I saw documents of someone who was obsessed with observing a patient known as John Doe, and also another doctor who came up with a serum that he claimed was, he was in the background that I saw that he claimed could mess with the psyche and shit like this, that he was going in and how, you know, and his name in the background was Dr. Jonathan Crane. But I also saw that you would think, well, who's Dr. Jonathan Crane? Because you see it on the computer or something if someone broke out and ended up being able to get to a layer, right, to check something out. It's while they're in this fucking torture horror place that of torment, their thing, and they'd be like, well, who's really going to be behind this? It's like, it's Dr. Hugo Strange, without a doubt, which would have obviously would have found Dr. Jonathan Crane's research to be also fascinating, was collecting also research from John Doe, who also took something known as eventually created his own thing called the laughing gas, right? Like, kind of like, right? Like, there was these bombs where you laugh to death, right? That the Joker actually had in the comics. And so I thought, well, that was interesting. We can make this very serious. Like, we can actually make something where it's like some a condition of bomb that makes you laugh to death. Like, that's so like shit. You just choke, like you laugh yourself to death. And it's like, oh, that's shit. I even thought about that, like in the background, but that's not the movie. That's just in the background in the research. My Joker, like, is also familiar with uh, getting things tweaked, and he also knows who Dr. Jonathan Crane is. And I also would love to have Margot Robbie come back as Harley Quinn. But when I saw her come back as Harley Quinn, I also saw her before Harley Quinn. I saw her as working for Doctor Strange and even Jonathan Crane at times as a psychologist, psychiatry, and to also as kind of like, she gets her while she's in training even, and having some of the background. And I also thought this would be a perfect time also in the background to explain this chemistry and this person known as that no one knows who the fuck his name is, who he is. They're just John Doe, which would become the Joker. But if I'm like, well, if I'm using, what Joker am I using? And I was like, am I going to create a new Joker, or am I going to use the Joker that someone else's Joker that already exists? Because I could take that from the other Suicide Squad, if I guess. And if that's the case, if I'm using Jared Leto's Joker, then if I do use Jared Leto's Joker, I would use his Joker as a, where he was already the Joker, obviously, because he was, but I would also see him as he has to have his own origin movie, I feel like, because in the background, I feel like for him, he would have took on like cartels to gain his own name. Like he had to somehow make other gangs afraid of him. I feel like he's a very gang related Joker, like Jared Leto, where he went in and where, because if you looked at him, you'd probably think like he's a nobody, right? His first appearance, like he had to somehow get that power and convince people like he's someone to be fucked, not to be fucked with. And I think that is probably the big threat that would emerge. The people that it doesn't suspect would probably start with the Penguin, then the Joker taking charge of that. Because if there was one person the Penguin hated more than the Batman, that was the Joker. So it's like, there's all these different things that you could keep but change that are similar to things. But anyway, that was there was a swamp near the cabin, and obviously I thought of a fight scene between a giant crocodile when I was thinking about a psyche kind of point where someone is kind of going through shit inside their mind at the same time are raging and trying to escape. I saw Dave Bautista's as Bane already having the tubes and shit stuck in him, like kind of like completely, almost pretty much all the way transformed. But he's kind of, I feel like he's kind of trying to fight the psyche part of it because I feel like he would be. I almost want to take him and make him also where he was just a normal wrestler. That was the science and shit, an alteration where he wasn't evil to begin with, and then someone else pretty much made him evil. And it's like this is why I thought Bane was going to be in this movie. I saw a really creepy girl in a jar, like when I was kind of writing that down in one of the rooms full of plants. And I had a different idea on poison ivy come to my mind, like as something that was so weird that like she was growing off the plants, but yet it was this dead girl that was so I had it like poison ivy was dead in the story, which was so bizarre because it was like you could be like, well, that's poison ivy, it's not poison ivy, but I did have that vision where she was dead and that somehow she was. You ever watch the movie The Ruins, where the plants kill people and how they all are communicating in the pyramid? It's like I kind of felt like there was something there with that, with her even being dead, something creepy. And I don't know, there's just like that's not a big part of the movie, but I just saw her in the movie for a moment, like in a room. Like I saw her in basically like being like this fucking weird shit going on in this fucking place, you know? So it's like, it's like, what the fuck is this? Like, oh, weird shit. And I'd like, well, I wanted to go and step up a notch and have fight scenes as well. So it's not all just like, it's not, well, it's a horror movie, but I also want to have a fight scene, some fight scenes involved in it, like throughout the lab. But I also saw like the swamp, and I saw like the delusions And I was like, well, what the fuck is this? And fighting a giant crocodile, right? Not being the croc. It's like, where the fuck does croc come from? Where did croc come from? And it's like, maybe that was something was connected. But then I also altered the idea when I wrote it, where I left it open, where it wasn't real, was it not? But one thing was clear is that Swamp Thing had the ability to also take the toxins of the swamp. Like, I wanted it so you could smell, the swamp. Like, if you could watch the movie and literally feel like you're smelling the atmosphere of this. So how strange that sounds, but to feel that and how it could literally enter you and alter you, and that's kind of like what I really was looking at. Like, that's something I shared in common with what James Gunn showed of Swamp Thing. Like, I felt like this was like somehow a commute. Like, can you imagine a tribe that connected themselves to this land, but not really a tribe, but it's like, because this could have been a love romance in the swamp, and how it changes you, and how it literally, you are this thing that lives in the swamp, and how there are swamp things. And it's like almost like mermaids of the ocean, but at the same time, there could be an region behind it. And I really was like, well, this is an alternating. One thing is clear: the swamp changes you. It has the ability to change you. Like and I kind of got that when I looked at that, like where the swamp thing fell in love with a real human woman, right? And how she would start to turn into a swamp thing, right? How it was like, love is the smell. Can you smell what I'm cooking? Kind of like, right? And it's like, I was like, well, this is kind of like weird, creepy, like, oh my God, this is getting into my skin, altering change, like the swamp thing, like, ugh, right? But that's kind of, that's the thing, like saying, I don't know, I thought it was like there was something similar there for sure. That was like altering, and I could see the camouflage. Like if someone comes in, definitely camouflage scenes, emerging from the swamp, being present in the swamp, and you don't know, and comes out in what he does, and it's, a very horror based movie, but I also feel like it's could be a little sad and have a bit of a hidden romance tragedy like behind it that you might not be expecting, like as well. Whereas even though you're going in like, well, this is a horror movie, yes, it is a horror movie. That's the front page of Swamp Thing, but it's also, I think people will be surprised to see that it's a little bit more emotional than you would expect. And the alteration of this type of horror. Like right now, this look the way I look like could be some creepy ass bat thing in the background that's having some hair growth issues. I look like something could totally be in the fucking dark universe right now. You had like fucking of all the things people can do, I think of the movies when I look at the back of those movies, and I think one of the movies I do would love to see a sequel to is Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. Like even after the Dragon Empire, there's so many stories, and the thing about that is that they're adventure movies. That is what I loved about like Jackie Chan's Adventures, the cartoon, like about it took things like the Chinese zodiac, it's very real, and talismans, and how they had these powers and all this stuff. Like I think it's fascinating that they could actually they have that, it has that tone. Like all the Mummy movies that he starred in had that tone where there was where it took certain things and just turned it into a fun fucking ride. I think personally, like now that he has, I forget his name, has that uh thing that can create and awaken mummies. Like it really makes things open up and some really fun directions. And I think he was going to Peru, if I remember correctly. I remember the words more than I do the names. Mentioning like Peru. So it's like, and so there's like, there's a lot of interesting things that could go down, and there's a lot of different stories. There's so much material they could choose from. It's not like they can't come up with a story. They can't come up with a story, then there's some issues because that shit is full of stories. There's a shitload of stories. If anything, it's there. It's like there's so many good. Like I could see several good sequels that could come out of that. And all they would have to do is if they just did one of them, I'd be like, well, I would have done that one. But it's like, it's like, well, yeah, but you can't go wrong with any of these spin-off, these sequels because they're all that I'm thinking in my head. It's, there are, yes, there's alternate choose my own adventures kind of idea that could go from it where you can have alternate things, but it's like at the same time, it's like Indiana Jones, the adventure, really never ends, and there could be a new thing as long as it connects to what it's all about. It's just like one really good movie. I mean, for all you know, they could do Dracula. Dracula could be summed up as some kind of, is Dracula a mummy? No. But I think, I don't know, there's some interesting shit, I guess, where you can look at things. I don't think Dracula's a good idea, actually, yet. But I think there's a lot of different ideas what you could do. I think, like, if I were to make the Dark Universe, I would. To me, I think it's been so done so many times and it's so well with a lot of it. Like when I think of things, it's like the whole when I look at like Dracula as a vampire, the first thing that pops into my mind is poetry before anything else. It's to me, it's a very poetic character. That it's like to me, the real Dracula is like this poetic infatuation with this bride that he seeks, that he has at one point, and how he makes the children of Dracula, and how he is so family based, but very poetic about uh, being who he is and drinking the blood and not always killing his victims, but you know, or slowly draining the blood and killing his victims. And he's definitely a animal, a monster. So that he kind of you know acts upon these things. But I also thought of something that's never been done in the movies, and that is what I love about Castlevania. That inspired this idea for me is that what if Dracula, a live version of we took Dracula and we actually started investing in like more likely a live action Castlevania vibe that and just said, hey, why can't Castlevania be connected to the Dark Universe? I had this other idea where we could take characters from the Castlevania and how I really enjoyed the preacher stuff, the evil behind that, the secret behind that, the secrets behind that, as well as there was different types of things and how Dracula the children and as well, and it's just like so many great things that were inspired from the Dark Universe as well that come back from all this old literature. Castlevania is amazing stories. People love those games for a reason. Like this, the lore and the stories behind Castlevania are fucking phenomenal. Like it's if I were to recommend an anime right now to go watch, like Castlevania is fucking amazing. Even on Netflix, that the Castlevania show is great. I found it to be. Like I kept thinking of a live action movie of it, like or to like different ideas of how you could turn that and tweak it into a fucking phenomenal badass dark universe movie that could eventually, yes, deviate a little bit from Castlevania and go into, like I said, the dark universe. Like I thought that was interesting how you could actually do it. Just like when I watched Friday the 13th Takes Manhattan. Do you know what I kept thinking when I watched that movie? When I first watched that movie, I was thinking at any moment now the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles could show up and fucking fight Jason Voorhees. I was like, I just couldn't get over that idea of how awesome that would have been to see. Like in my mind, I saw it. It wasn't in the movie, but I kept like, fuck, that should be in the movie. This should fucking like how ridiculous the movie is. All all those Friday the 13th movies at some point spiraling in this direction. Like Jason X Outer Space. I never watched that one. I actually own it, but I've never seen it. But it's the last one I started watching. I turned off for some reason. I guess I didn't. I was so bored. Like I don't know. It was like, ah, shit. Oh, okay. I think it was when they had him, so he was being possessing someone else. Jason Goes to Hell. In my mind, that had nothing. In my mind, that was not what I was expecting. I was expecting like at least a little Nicky hell. You know what I mean? Going to hell, kind of like layers and dimensions and fighting Lucifer himself. And I was like, oh shit. I was really disappointed. I never finished that movie because I was like, the movie in my mind is so hyped. The movie I had in my mind was so fucking much better. Jason Goes to Hell in my mind was like Lucifer, fucking the devil, like these giant fighting scenes and shit. Like I just see him like taking on like fucking the stereotype of Lucifer, the idea behind it, and it's like and like even having these pearl gates. It's like fucking it's so fucking dumb. But it's like just look, I was watching Jason versus or Jason Takes Manhattan. God, I'm so dude, that movie should have had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in it. I swear to God, like that movie to me was a fucking it screamed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like I just kept seeing them on top somehow come out. They were in a sewer. Man, they could have fought in the sewers. Because Jason Voorhees versus the Ninja Turtles in the sewers and on the rooftops in Manhattan. Where's that combination? Because that would have been that set in the 80s. Very important. I want this movie in the 80s. Like where the Ninja Turtles are in the 80s and Manhattan 80s and Jason Voorhees is on a killing spree that, he comes and shows up. Like, come on, that was a missed opportunity. Like, right when he got there, it would have been funny as fuck when he finally got there. It starts off as a Jason murder spree on these boats. Take him to Manhattan. And then he's to Manhattan, and all of a sudden he pisses off, like, you know, some all kinds of turtles. I just thought it would. I don't know. I couldn't get over that when I was watching fucking Jason Takes Manhattan. Kept popping in my mind if I could think of Ninja Turtles. But when I kept watching, when I went back to watch the original Friday the 13th, I kept also thinking of this secret origin Like yeah, he died, but yet he also came back and was somehow able to grow. What is the fuck is this secret thing? And also kill with his mother in the background somehow, probably before, or he watched his mother die. They say he watched his mother die and something clicked inside him. And then he started doing that. But I think he's the prodigy of the Evil Dead. I think Jason Voorhees is a spore, or like basically from the Sam Raimi's Evil Dead Necromonicon. I shit you not. Like I kept thinking in my mind, what if this boy is dead, and that there's just some part of him that's there for sure, but it's connected to this curse, this entity that's connected to the Necromonicon that keeps bringing his ass back. And what is it? If he dies, he just rises back from the water? Like, what happens when you burn him and bury him? I know they had him so he was buried, but I kept thinking his body could decompose, or if he's trapped. Like, some reason I kept thinking of something also in the background, of some deeper meaning in the background when I first watched the. See, I need to forget the existence of the other Jason Voorhees movies for a moment, because if I did and pretended that those movies didn't exist and I just focus on the first couple Friday the 13th movies, like, and just really could see something there, I would tell you that I totally see a movie where this fucker is worth. Like, I think Friday the 13th Part 2 is one of the best ones before he even has the hockey mask. He sings about it. Yeah, uh, I kept thinking about like this guy, and when I kept watching his mother's head, it also brought me back to the video game where it telepathically communicates with him, like The Shining. Like somehow I kept thinking like any moment that head's gonna move, and I just was like, if I could do this movie justice, I would absolutely want to be able to use Sam Raimi's Evil Dead and to connect it with Jason, not just Jason Voorhees, but also his mother, and to make a real fucked up Oresian movie that could lead into something, and then do a Jason Voorhees movie, like a sequel of the Prodigy afterwards. You see what I'm saying? Like, I actually think it does start with his mother, and it starts with his death, and I want her to have this Necromonicon, and I want her to be involved with the Evil Dead. And I kept thinking of this. I still want it set in the 80s, but come out of the 50s. And I want to see scenes that are flashed in the 50s and while existing in the 80s. Like, I want to see this boy, like, to be connected somehow to to really be like, why Friday the 13th? Like, I want to see, like, why, right? I want it to be like, okay, ritual, Friday the 13th, connected, cheesy as hell, right? But it doesn't have to be cheesy as hell. The comedy is in the inaccuracy of the meaning behind it. So it's like, even the new Evil Dead has some comedy to it, even though it's more centered on horror, right? So it's like, like the opening scene, like, I want to eat your soul. It's just creepy, but at the same time, like, you could look at it in different meanings. But uh, there's a lot of different things that you can do with that. And I think if I were to make a Friday the 13th movie, I would make a origin movie. I would like to make at probably three, a trilogy. But what I would probably do is I'd probably do I guess like the an origin movie, that a secret origin movie that I could pay respect to at the same time, but also try to hide. Like if I wanted to, I guess I could make an origin movie that could also connect to the original, but stealthily to the original Friday the 13th, with why his mom acts that way, and have this background, and and explain how she could have hid that thing, and then did a reboot basically, so that origin movie could go into both. See what I'm saying? Like a choose your own adventure kind of vibe, and then do that other Jason Voorhees movie as a third. Or I could just skip the choose your own adventure and go straight into the origin and just end up having the mother die in that movie instead, and have him get her head in that movie, because I want him to emerge demonically from the lake, but I also want to see him as the versions of him as that creepy little boy, like haunting, like they did in the movies before, but having him haunting like campers and shit like that. Like that's why I kind of like really dig that's so sad, so creepy. Okay, so this is how it all starts. Is this deranged mother is pissed because her boy died in the lake, and that's all you're told, right? And really, right? So pretty much that's the premises that, and so she starts killing people for it. She completely goes nuts. But hear me out. What if this whole time she brought her son back by using the Necromonicon? Like she found, like in the background, she lost her mind because she was obsessed with bringing her son back at the same time, and had something in the background. Like this is what I kept thinking of: an Evil Dead meets the Friday the 13th movie could be a phenomenal brew. Like if it's executed correctly, like Evil Dead, Jason Voorhees origin movie, and then Jason Voorhees movie afterwards. Because seeing it like at least two movies, and then maybe three, but at least two. So and so later on, I might, like, after that point in my mind, would I like to make a Jason takes reboot of Jason Takes Manhattan? I sort of, hear me out. I think we already missed out on that opportunity of having the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and coming at that right perfect moment in time. But I don't think it's too late to have a collaboration movie with more than Jason Voorhees and the Ninja Turtles in Manhattan. Like I think I would, at this point in my life, because I'm gonna be dead tomorrow, I'd probably just make one hell of a fighting movie that just so happens to have couple Manhattan fighting scenes, like in the sewers, set in the 80s and on the rooftops, that involve the turtles. Think about it. Capcom versus fucking Marvel is allowed that in video games. Imagine what the hell they can do in movies. Why can't they do that shit in movies? People saying no, I would imagine. Some creative hold on shit, that some other additional laws, I suppose, like that are more strict. I guess people are more lean on video games, and they don't really like the why they're so easy to sell off a license to multiple people in video games, while they're trying to control the movie industry a little more. themselves being more stricter in the movie industry. I mean, hey, there's already Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like in fucking Mortal Kombat. But I'm just thinking from the movie industry. This is like if you looked at video games, you'd never fucking have to. You really would never have to watch a movie ever again in your life. Like movies are for a completely different audience at the end of the day. Mostly, you like if I sat here and I looked at video games and then movies, I could only choose one or the other for the rest of my life. Why would I choose a movie when video games also have movies in them? Video games also have uh, a lot more. They you you pick up a movie. When is it the day you could pick up a movie? Here's an idea. And be able to read multiple stories and books, or have some kind of say over the music in the background to control the theme and the vibe and the feel. See, the thing about movies to me is that it is a uncontrolled experience. That you go in and you let go. It's a ride. The story is first and front center. And in a video game, it's to choose your own damn adventures. But the perks of that playability in that game that you could, that in the video game industry is that there are movies, music, books, stories, comics, is really up to the developer and the limitations that they decide their game to have. Like, when I look at a game like this, even scripted on the PS3 originally, and if they could make fucking PlayStation Home on that thing, there's no reason why they couldn't have had like 50 million different readable books. Sometimes I think about like, why the hell would I publish a book? You ever get that? Like, why the hell would I publish any of my works if I could put it all in a video game? You imagine, like, you make, like, I don't know, let's say I write and I choose, you know, 100 of my stories. I go as far as 100. I spend a lot of time. This maybe go further than 100 full-fledged novels and scripts, and then make comics, and then have other people do theirs as well. And we all decided to collab to put our stories in where people can read them, but also decided to put our like to film movies like that are real Hollywood blockbuster films, but not air them in movie theaters or in a streaming service, but instead aired them inside our video games. That'd be something, wouldn't it? And like, and then it's like, and then later on, be like, well, you remember that game with all that shit that was in it? It's like, well, that's in it. You could be like selling it like a puzzle piece, like people sell, come get the action figure to this movie. You could be like, well, from the video game industry, that's what movies would be. The action figure to video games. Like if you were gonna, well, let me just take this out of this and be like, well, look at this little story here now being turned into a movie. Where'd they get it from? But when I get my van back up and running, writing is not really 100% my goals anymore. As now I'm looking more for I feel like I'm doing something different. And I haven't done acting in forever. I have that up in the air. I haven't decided if I'm 100% going to do it or not. But I think I will. I think I'm going to aim for like being a part of character development, like I was saying. Like I'm going to start looking, being on the road, because when I am like grounded in an area, it makes it so it's harder for me to do something. Like when I'm living on wheels, it makes it so I'm like gonna be up to decide. It's gonna be easier because I'm not paying for a vehicle and shelter. I'm not paying for additional bills because I'd be investing my whole house into this, and it will save me money as well on top of it. And to just focus on it's like cutting certain costs and investing in the like into that. And then, like I said, I really enjoy the southern weather and the west, so I could run into opportunities all over the place. I'm down for when I look at myself right now, I'm extremely freaking tired. I think I show it, pardon me, even though this is a really kind of grindy camera, but I also see myself as uh, having a lot of potential and talent, but also being destroyed by it if I let myself. Like, so much creativity could either be your maker or your breaker. You make or break. So when I look at things and what I obsessed over, or when I link on like a character or something, then if someone's like, "Well, do you want to be in this movie?" Time I'm there, I'm like, probably, yeah, but yeah. See, especially if it's just a movie like a comedy or a horror movie, like a lot of times you don't have to put any thought, as much thought into that stuff because they kind of will take their own form anyway, and you just base off the characters there. Like it doesn't have to be gold to like to the point of like this multi-billion-dollar seller. It's not the point of it, but it's like if it does, it's like yay, cool, awesome. And it's like yes, and then you could be proud of something you made, I guess. But at the same time, when I look at myself, I see myself as comedy horror, but also dramatic, depressed. I can also see myself as someone who's in the back, just like kind of like totally like killed or something. I can see myself as a mutant, like deformed eyelids down right now, like because of the glare. Maybe I am, uh, uh, Jesus. Maybe I'm one of those hillbilly. What is it? The Hills Have Eyes characters. I'm like some kind of mutant characters. Like, how I just kind of like do this. The whole point is you see the illusion. You stare at that image that I just did for a while, and you can kind of get the idea of someone who is like I could totally do that. I could pull it off for sure. But anyway, I am tired, so and I push this on because I think I kind of let it provoke me to. So, and I'm too tired to be playing video games right now for sure. 2 hours and 13 minutes. Awesome. Okay. Love you all. Free will. Uh, do some research, I guess. I don't know what's the homework today. Uh, is the Statue of Liberty is the Statue of Liberty owned by where it's placed in what state? And what state is it technically placed in? And do you have to pay? And what makes you have to pay? And who? And why would you have to pay to go visit the Statue of Liberty? Hmm. Why would you want to visit the Statue of Liberty? Can't you telepathically, imaginatively imaginatively visit the Statue of Liberty? Maybe you could become the Statue of Liberty. All right. All right. God bless. Adios. Saranara. Hasta la vista. Hasta la vista. How we see it is we can do whatever we want. How I see it. All right. Venom out.